Kyoto sits in a wide basin ringed by soft forested mountains that rise blue-green against the horizon and seem to cradle the city like a protective hand. Stepping off the train and taking the first steps through the streets, you feel a different rhythm immediately. Something slower and quieter than Tokyo or Osaka, as though the city had simply decided not to follow the hurry of modern Japan. The Kamo River runs through the city from north to south, clear water sliding over flat grey stones, and along its banks in the early evening, students, couples and old men settle down at almost regular intervals, spaced out so evenly it feels like an unspoken rule. It was the year 794 when Emperor Kanmu declared this plain the new capital and gave it the name Heian-kyo, City of Peace and Tranquility. And for more than 1,000 years afterward, Kyoto remained the political and spiritual center of Japan until the capital moved to Tokyo in 1868. Those centuries never washed away, they still lie like fine dust on every street corner, in every weathered wooden beam. The houses in the old districts are low, built from dark timber, with narrow street-facing fronts and deep, hidden inner courtyards. Machiya they are called, traditional merchant townhouses that reveal themselves like a riddle only once you actually walk through them. In the morning, a fine mist often hangs over the city, especially in autumn, when the temperature between the surrounding mountains and the valley floor shifts, and the outlines of temple roofs emerge only faintly out of the grey, like ink drawings on wet paper. The air smells of incense, of damp moss, of fried tofu from small food stalls that open long before sunrise, their steam rising in thin threads. Bicycles glide by almost silently, school uniforms in dark navy, older women in yukata who move even while doing ordinary shopping as though every gesture had been rehearsed and refined over decades. Kyoto counts more than 1,600 Buddhist temples and over 400 Shinto shrines, a density of sacred places found nowhere else on earth, and yet none of it pushes itself into the foreground. You turn a corner on an entirely ordinary residential street and suddenly stand in front of a centuries-old gate, without warning, without a sign, without a crowd gathered in front of it. This casualness toward the sacred is what sets Kyoto apart from any other city visited so far. Here the extraordinary is woven firmly into the everyday, never artificially separated from it or locked away in a museum. The mountains to the east, called Arashiyama, live up to their name. When the afternoon sun sits low, it turns the wooded slopes a warm copper, and the silhouettes of the pagodas stand out sharply against it, as if drawn into the sky with a single confident brushstroke. There are no trams left here, only a network of buses moving between neighborhoods, and a subway system that runs remarkably unobtrusively beneath this 1,000-year-old city, almost as if to avoid disturbing the illusion of timelessness on the surface above. Anyone walking through Kyoto for the first time needs a while to understand that the city makes no single grand gesture, offers no one overwhelming moment like an Eiffel Tower or a skyline. Instead, it unfolds itself in 1,000 small, quiet details that only gradually come together into a whole, step by step, alley by alley, gate by gate. No place in Kyoto tells the city's history as uncompromisingly as Fushimi Inari Taisha, the shrine at the foot and along the slopes of Mount Inari in the south of the city. Since the year 711 people have worshipped Inari here, the deity of rice, prosperity and success, and over the centuries merchants, business owners and families have donated thousands of bright vermilion torii gates, which today climb the mountain in dense, seemingly endless rows. Walking through them feels like moving through a tunnel of color, light falling in narrow stripes between the beams, and at some point you lose all sense of time and direction. Only the gentle incline and the steady creak of old wooden posts carrying you further upward. Kinkaku-ji, the Golden Pavilion in the northwest of the city, offers a completely different but equally striking impression. Originally built in 1397 as a retirement villa for the shogun Ashikaga Yoshimitsu, it was converted into a Zen temple after his death, its top 2 floors entirely covered in gold leaf. The building reflects in a calm pond, and depending on the time of day, the balance shifts between the still gold of the facade and the rippling gold on the water, so that no photograph, no single glance, is ever quite the same as the last. The building standing today, though, only dates from 1955 because in 1950 a young novice monk set the original pavilion on fire, a story that Yukio Mishima later turned into literature, and one that shows how closely beauty and destruction have always lived side by side in this city. Nijo Castle, built for the first Tokugawa shogun Ieyasu, tells its own story of power and vigilance. The famous nightingale floors of the Ninamaru Palace were deliberately constructed to produce a high, bird-like chirp with every step, a clever early warning system against assassins in an era of political intrigue. Kyoto remained the imperial capital for more than 11 centuries and was repeatedly struck by devastating fires, especially during the Onin War between 1467 and 1477, which reduced large parts of the city to ash. And yet every time it was rebuilt faithfully to the original, using the same techniques and unfinished cypress wood, without a single nail, only interlocking joints that withstand earthquakes and time in equal measure. This construction method, known as kigumi, allows temples to shift slightly during an earthquake instead of breaking, flexibility as a survival strategy, both architecturally and culturally. In the Higashiyama temple district stands Kiyomizu Dera, its wide wooden terrace perched on enormous stilts above a hillside, built in 778 without a single nail, and renewed many times since. From here the view stretches over the rooftops of the old town toward the distant mountains, while down in the valley the Ottawa waterfall splits into 3 separate streams, each carrying its own meaning, love, longevity, success in study, and visitors line up patiently with long-handled cups to drink from exactly one of the 3 streams. This combination of monumental craftsmanship and small, almost private ritual is typical of the entire city. Nothing here feels accidental. Every detail, every number, every alignment of a building follows a centuries-old logic drawn from feng shui principles, Buddhist cosmology, and the practical lessons of countless reconstructions after fire and earthquake. No district in Kyoto carries as much legend and is lived as authentically as Gion, the traditional geisha quarter east of the Kumo River. The main street, Hanami-Koji, runs between 2-story wooden houses whose narrow facades carry fine vertical lattice screens, letting people see out while keeping others from seeing in, an architectural translation of discretion itself. Toward evening, when the paper lanterns in front of the tea houses light up, with some patience you can watch a maiko, a geisha in training, hurry to an appointment in small, quick steps, wearing an elaborately embroidered kimono and an elevated hairstyle decorated with kanzashi flower ornaments, her face painted white, her lips a precise small red. Only a few hundred geiko and maiko remain active across all of Kyoto today, a craft of dance, music, conversation and hospitality that takes years to learn and is now as fragile as it is precious. But Gion is far more than a backdrop. In its small alleys, families still live as they have for generations, running noodle shops where the broth has been simmering continuously for decades, or tiny bars with just 5 stools, where the owner knows every regular by name. Along the Kumo River itself, a different, more informal side of Kyoto life appears. In summer, restaurants along Pontocho Alley build their yucca platforms directly over the water, wooden decks where people dine as the sun sets, the river murmuring quietly below while the heat of the day slowly.
Cherry blossom season in April, Sakura, transforms the entire city for barely 2 weeks. The Philosopher's Path, a narrow canal walkway between the temples Ginkakuji and Nanzenji, becomes lined with hundreds of blooming trees whose petals drift down onto the water's surface and float slowly downstream, while residents sit beneath the branches with picnic blankets. A ritual called Hanami that has been practiced since the Heian period more than 1,000 years ago. In autumn, the city turns red and orange instead, momiji, especially striking in the temple garden of Tefukaji, where maple trees arch over a bridge and visitors stand silently for minutes just to watch. The tea ceremony, Sado, is no tourist performance in Kyoto but a living practice. In small, often hidden tea houses, young women and men still spend years learning the exact sequence of hand movements used to prepare and serve matcha. Every gesture governed by centuries-old etiquette, every silence between actions just as important as the action itself. The food tells the same story of precision. Kaiseki, Kyoto's traditional multi-course cuisine, uses only seasonal ingredients, often from the surrounding mountains and fields, and every dish is arranged to visually reflect the current season. A single maple leaf resting on tofu in autumn, a cherry blossom shaped from pink-dyed rice in spring. Between the great temples, Kyoto's residents move with a remarkable ease, cycling past 1,000 years of history without a second glance, because for them the extraordinary long ago became the familiar backdrop of their own everyday lives. West of the city, across the Katsura River, lies Arashiyama, and anyone stepping onto the narrow path through its bamboo grove understands immediately why this place has drawn poets and painters for centuries.